Chapter 1. Story of the Door. Mr. Utterson is a lawyer. His face is hard and he almost never smiles. He speaks little. He is tall, thin, and looks dusty and serious, but people still like him. When he sits with friends and drinks a little wine, a warm light comes into his eyes. He is strict with himself. When he is alone, he drinks plain gin. He likes the theater, but he has not gone for 20 years. He is kind to other people. He does not judge them. He says, "People can choose their own way." Many men who start to fall in life still meet him. He is often their last good friend, and he stays kind to them. Mr. Utterson does not make new friends easily. He keeps old friends from family and from long ago. One friend is Mr. Richard Enfield, a well-known man in town. People wonder why these two are friends. When they walk together on Sundays, they often say nothing. They may look dull, and they feel relief when another friend joins them. Still, they love these walks. They value them more than parties or business. They protect this time every week. One Sunday, they walk into a small side street in a busy part of London. The street is quiet but full of good shops. The owners work hard and make money. They paint their shutters, clean the brass, and keep everything bright. Even on Sunday, the street looks cheerful next to the dark houses around it. It shines like a fire in a forest. The windows and doors seem to smile at people who pass. But near the corner, the line of happy shops breaks. A dark, ugly building stands there. It has no windows on the ground floor. It has a door that is old, stained, and dirty. The walls are old and broken. The people who pass throw no stones, but it looks like they want to. Mr. Enfield points and says, "Do you see that door?" I know a strange story about it. Mr. Utterson says, "Tell me." Mr. Enfield begins. One winter night, at about 3 o'clock, I walked home from a far place. The streets were empty, only the lamps were on. I felt lonely and wanted to see a policeman. Then I saw two people. One was a small man who walked fast. The other was a little girl, about 8 or 10, who ran from another street. They met at the corner. They crashed into each other. Then the man stepped on the child and walked over her body. She fell and screamed on the ground. It sounds small when I say it, but to see it was terrible. It was not like a man. It was like a heavy machine with no heart. I shouted and ran after him. I caught him by the collar and brought him back. People came out of their houses. The girl's family came. A doctor came too. The child was not hurt badly, the doctor said. She was more scared than hurt, but everyone hated the man at once. He was very calm. He did not fight me. He only looked at us with a cold, ugly face. That look made us all shake with anger. The doctor was a simple man with a strong voice. He was usually calm, but even he wanted to hit the man. We all felt the same. We could not hurt him, so we spoke hard words. We said we would make a big scandal in all of London. We said his name would be dirty from one end of the city to the other. If he had friends or a good name, he would lose them. The women were wild with anger. We held them back. The man stood in the middle. He looked cool and cruel like the devil. He was also a little afraid. At last he said, "No gentleman wants a scene. Tell me how much." We asked for £100 for the child's family. He did not want to pay, but we were many, and we were serious. So he agreed. Then we had to get the money. He took us to that door. He used a key, went inside, and soon came out again. He gave us £10 in gold and a check for the rest. The check was from a famous bank. It was payable to whoever carried it. The name on the check was one I cannot tell you. It is important to my story, but I will not say it. It is a very famous name in London. I told the man the truth. I said, "This looks false. No one walks into a cellar door at 4 a.m. and comes out with another man's check for almost £100. He smiled and said, "Do not worry. I will stay with you until the bank opens. If the check is bad, you can do what you like with me." We waited together. In the morning, we went to the bank. The check was good. It was real, and the bank paid it. Now here is the worst part. The man who hurt the child is a hateful person. He is like something wrong with nature. People feel sick when they see him. But the person who signed the check is a man of very good name. He is known as a good and proper man. That is why I fear the story behind this. I think it is blackmail. A good man is paying for some bad act from long ago. Because of this, I call that building Blackmail House. But even this idea does not explain everything. Mr. Utterson asks, "Does the man who signed the check live there?" "No," says Mr. Enfield. "I know his address. He lives in a square somewhere else in the city. And you never ask about that place with the door?" says Mr. Utterson. "No," says Mr. Enfield. "I do not like to ask questions." Questions can start trouble. You push one small stone, and many stones roll down the hill. In the end, a nice old man may be hurt in his own garden, and his family must change their name. So I follow a rule. The more a thing looks strange, the less I ask. "That is a good rule," says the lawyer. "But I have watched that door," Mr. Enfield goes on. "It hardly looks like a home. There is no other door. No one uses it. Only sometimes a certain man comes. He is small. He has a key. He uses the key and goes in. Then he brings out a letter for a person with a very famous name. The windows are always closed. The house looks empty and dead. Still, that man comes now and then." "What does he look like?" asks Mr. Utterson. "I cannot say," says Mr. Enfield. "He looks wrong, but I cannot name the place where he is wrong. He is not clearly ugly, and yet I hate him. He gives a strong feeling of something broken. He is strange, and my memory is clear. I can see him now in my mind, but I cannot describe him." They walk in silence for a while. Then Mr. Utterson asks, "Are you sure he used a key?" "My dear sir," says Mr. Enfield, surprised. "I know it sounds strange," says Mr. Utterson. "If I do not ask the other name, it is because I already know it. Your story touches me. If there is any part where you were not exact, please correct it." "I wish you told me before," says Mr. Enfield, a little angry. "But I told it exactly. That man had a key, and he still has it. I saw him use it last week." Mr. Utterson gives a deep sigh. He says nothing. Mr. Enfield feels sorry and says, "This is another lesson. Say nothing. I am ashamed of my long tongue. Let us promise never to speak of this again, with all my heart," says the lawyer. "I agree." Chapter 2. Search for Mr. Hyde. Mr. Utterson goes home on a Sunday evening. He lives alone in a quiet, tidy house. He feels heavy in his heart. He is not in a merry mood. He eats his dinner, but he does not enjoy it. He does not taste much. He sits down by the fire. On most Sundays, he reads a serious book until the church clock strikes 12. Then he thanks God for the day and goes to bed. He likes order. He likes quiet. He likes to end the day in a calm way. But this Sunday is not like other Sundays. He is not at peace. As soon as the table is cleared, he stands up. He takes a candle in his hand. He walks to his business room. He opens his safe with care. Inside the safe is a paper in an envelope. On the envelope are the words, Doctor, Jekyll's will. He sits down at the table. His face is dark. He reads the paper again, slowly and carefully. He has read it before. He knows what it says, but he reads it again because it troubles him. The will is written in Dr. Jekyll's own hand. Mr. Utterson keeps it safe now that it is made, but he did not help to write it. He refused to help, and he is still not happy about it. The will says that if Dr. Henry Jekyll dies, all that he owns will go to a man named Edward Hyde. It says more than that. It says that if Dr. Jekyll disappears and is not seen for 3 months, then Edward Hyde will step into Dr. Jekyll's place. He will have the house. He will have the money. He will be free of all duties except to pay small sums to the servants. These words hurt Mr. Utterson. They hurt him as a lawyer, and they hurt him as a friend who loves the common, safe ways of life. He does not like wild ideas. He does not like strange plans. At first, he thought the will was a kind of madness. Now, after seeing Hyde in his mind and hearing the story of the door, he begins to fear that it is something worse. He says to himself, I thought it was madness. Now I begin to fear it is disgrace. He blows out the candle. He puts on a thick coat. He goes out into the cold night. He walks to Cavendish Square. This place is full of great doctors. It is like a strong castle of medicine. There his old friend, Dr. Lanyon, has his house. Many patients come to see Dr. Lanyon. Mr. Utterson thinks, if anyone knows the truth, it will be Lanyon. The butler is serious, but he knows Mr. Utterson and is glad to see him. He does not make him wait. He leads him at once to the dining room. Dr. Lanyon sits there alone with his wine. Dr. Lanyon is a hearty man. He is healthy and full of life. He is neat and quick in his movements. His face is red. His hair is white before its time. His manner is strong and loud, but he has a kind heart. He jumps up when he sees Mr. Utterson. He takes both his hands and welcomes him warmly. He often looks a little too grand when he shows his feelings, but his feelings are true. These two men are old friends. They studied together. They share many years. They sit and talk about old times. They smile. They remember the past. Then they speak of common friends. Mr. Utterson says, we are all old friends, Lanyon, you, I, and Henry Jekyll. Dr. Lanyon laughs and says, I wish the friends were younger. But we are the ones who are old. Mr. Utterson asks, do you see much of Henry Jekyll now? Dr. Lanyon says, no. I see little of him. I thought we had a bond. I thought we had the same taste. But more than 10 years ago, he changed. Mr. Utterson looks surprised. Dr. Lanyon goes on. He says, Henry Jekyll became too fanciful for me. He began to go wrong in his mind. He chose strange ideas. He left the true path of science. Of course, I still care for him as an old friend, but I have seen very little of him for a long time. His face grows purple with feeling. He says, such unscientific talk would have parted even the best friends. He is angry when he thinks of it, but the anger passes. Mr. Utterson feels a little better when he hears this. He thinks, they only differ on some point of science. It is nothing worse than that he lets his friend grow calm again. Then he asks the question that brought him here. He says, Lanyon, have you ever met a young man who is a friend of Jekyll? His name is Mr. Hyde. Dr. Lanyon repeats the name. He says, Hyde? Number. I have never heard of him. Not in my time. That is all the news Mr. Utterson gets. He says good night. He walks back to his house. He goes to bed, but he cannot sleep. He turns from side to side. His mind works in the dark. He asks himself many questions. He has no answers. The night is long. At last the little hours grow big. Morning is coming. He sleeps a little and then wakes again. He is not at ease. At 6 o'clock the bells of the church ring. A plan comes to him. He rises at once. He dresses. He goes out to the small street that Mr. Enfield showed him. It is the quiet by-street with the ugly door and the dark old building. He stands and looks at the door. Then he begins to keep watch. He is a patient man. He returns there again and again. He goes by day and by night. He goes when the street is empty. He goes when the street is full. He goes in fog and in clear air. He goes in silence and in noise. He waits with a steady heart. He stands there like a guard. He is ready to see the man he seeks. He makes a small, brave joke to himself. He thinks, if he is Mr. Hyde, I shall be Mr. The joke is simple, but it helps him. It gives him a steady will. He keeps his place by the door for many evenings. At last his patience has a reward. It is a fine, dry night. There is frost in the air. The streets shine and are as clean as a ballroom floor. The lamps hang still. There is no wind. The pattern of light and shadow is even and clear. By 10 o'clock the shops are closed. The by-street is very empty. It is very quiet in spite of the low growl of London all around. Small sounds carry far. House sounds come from the rooms on each side. One can hear them from the street. The sound of any step is heard a long time before the walker arrives. Mr. Utterson has been at his post for some minutes when he hears an odd, light footstep. He knows the city well. He has walked alone at night many times. He knows how one person's steps rise clear from the hum of the town. But never before has a sound caught his ear so sharply. He feels a strange hope. He draws back into the entry of the court. He waits in the shadow and looks out. The steps come near quickly. They suddenly sound louder as they turn the corner. The lawyer looks out from the entry. He can now see the man who is coming. The man is small. He is very plainly dressed. Even at a distance, there is something in him that goes against the watcher's heart. The man walks straight to the door. He crosses the road to save a moment. As he comes, he takes a key from his pocket. He moves like a man who is coming to his own home. Mr. Utterson steps out and touches him on the arm. He says, "Mr. Hyde, I think?" The man starts. He draws in his breath with a hiss like a snake. Then he answers, "That is my name." "What do you want?" Mr. Utterson says, "I am an old friend of Dr. Jekyll. I have heard of you. I think you are coming from his house?" The man says, "Doctor, Jekyll is not at home." Mr. Utterson says, "I must speak with you. Will you let me walk with you a little?" The man is silent for a moment. Then he says, "You did not ask me how I knew your name." Mr. Utterson says, "By description." The man says, "By whose description?" Mr. Utterson says, "By Mr. Enfield's." The man asks, "And what did he say?" Mr. Utterson says, "He told me enough for me to know you." The man looks at him with a cold eye. "You are a lawyer," he says. "Yes," says Mr. Utterson. "I am a lawyer, and I am a friend of Dr. Jekyll." The man says, "We must not stand here." Mr. Utterson says, "Will you tell me where you live?" The man hesitates. Then he says the name of a street in Soho. Mr. Utterson repeats it to be sure. The man nods, then Mr. Utterson says, "Will you be so kind as to let me see your face?" The man looks troubled. He waits a second. Then he lifts his face into the light for a moment. Mr. Utterson studies it. He feels a shock. He feels dislike and fear. The feeling is very strong. He does not cry out, but he must fight to keep his voice calm. He says, "Thank you." He takes a card from his pocket and gives it to the man. "My name is Mr. Utterson. If you ever need a lawyer, please call on me." The small man gives a hard little laugh. He says, "I do not think I need a lawyer." Mr. Utterson says, "We shall see." The man says, "Good night," and goes in at the door with his key. He shuts the door behind him. Mr. Utterson listens. He hears a slight sound inside. Then all is still. Mr. Utterson walks away slowly. He puts his hand to his brow. His thoughts are deep and dark. He tries to find words for what he has seen and felt. Mr. Hyde is pale and small. He gives the idea of a twisted shape, but there is no clear mark or injury to name. He has a smile that displeases. He is shy and bold at once, in a strange mix. He speaks in a low, whispering, broken voice. These are all bad signs, but they do not explain the new and strong disgust, hate, and fear that rise in Mr. Utterson. He says to himself, "There must be something else. There is something more, if I could find a name for it." God help me. The man seems hardly human. He looks like a creature from a dark cave. He thinks again and says, "No, it is not just a shape. It is like the light of a bad soul that shines through the face and changes the flesh. Poor old Harry Jekyll, if I ever read the mark of Satan on a face, it is on the face of your new friend." From the by-street Mr. Utterson turns the corner. There is a square with old grand houses. Most houses are not as fine as before. Many are now flats and rooms. People of many kinds live and work there. Map makers, builders, doubtful lawyers, and agents for dark business. But one large house near the corner is still all in one piece. It looks rich and comfortable, even in the dark. Only the small fanlight over the door is shining. Mr. Utterson stops at this door and knocks. An elderly servant opens. He is well dressed. Mr. Utterson asks, "Is Dr. Jekyll at home, Poole?" The servant says, "I will see, Mr. Utterson." He lets the visitor in and leads him across a large hall. The hall is open to the roof. A bright fire burns in the fireplace. The light shines on costly cabinets. The floor is laid with rich mats. In this pleasant room, Dr. Jekyll often receives his friends. The servant leaves Mr. Utterson there and goes to ask the master. Soon Poole comes back. He says, "Doctor?" "Jekyll is not at home," Sir Mr. Utterson says. "I am sorry." "I wish to see him." Then he asks softly, "I saw Mr. Hyde go in by the old laboratory door just now. Is that right?" Poole answers, "Yes, sir. Mr. Hyde has a key." Mr. Utterson asks, "He has a key to that door?" Poole says, "Yes, he has." Mr. Utterson says, "And my master, Dr. Jekyll, uses the door sometimes as well, does he not?" Poole says, "Yes, sir. He uses it too." Mr. Utterson is quiet for a moment. Then he says, "Good night, Poole." He adds, "One thing more. We gave up the good dinners at this house some time ago. My dear doctor, Jekyll used to give dinners for his friends. Have they stopped?" Poole says, "Yes, sir. They have stopped." He looks down and adds, I think we will not have them again soon. Mr. Utterson frowns. He says, "You do not like Mr." Hyde says, "No, sir, we do not." Mr. Utterson says, "What sort of man is he?" Poole answers, "I cannot say. I cannot name it. He is not clearly ugly, and yet I do not like him. I feel cold when I see him." Then Poole adds, "He is the one who comes and goes by the laboratory door. The servants have orders to obey him. We all have orders from the master, but we have not good feelings toward him." Mr. Utterson says, "I see. Thank you, Poole." He says good night again and goes out into the square. As he walks, Mr. Utterson thinks of the house. In his mind, he draws a map. The front of the house faces the square, with the warm hall and the rich chairs where friends are received. The back of the house faces the small, dark street. There stands the old laboratory and the old surgery rooms. The ugly door in Mr. Enfield's story is the door to that laboratory. Now, Mr. Utterson understands. The two doors belong to the same place. Dr. Jekyll owns both. Mr. Hyde has a key to the back door. He comes and goes as he likes. He moves like a master. He is the same man who paid the check that night, and the check had a famous name. The thought makes Mr. Utterson feel even more cold. Mr. Utterson is troubled deeply. He goes back to his own room. He sits down and thinks. He takes out Dr. Jekyll's will again. He reads the strange rule again. If Dr. Jekyll dies, Hyde gets all. If Dr. Jekyll disappears for 3 months, Hyde gets all. The words seem to burn into his eyes. He looks back at his own past. He is a careful man. He has done wrong things, but not many. There are many bad things he nearly did and did not do. He is thankful for that. He feels humble. Then he returns to the present fear. He says to himself, "This Mr. Hyde, if someone studied him, would be found to have secrets, black secrets. Next to his secrets, poor Jekyll's worst acts would look like sunshine. Things cannot go on as they do now. I feel cold when I think of that man stealing like a thief to Harry's bed. Poor Harry, what a waking that would be. There is danger here. If Hyde knows about the will, he may grow impatient. He may not wait to inherit. I must help. I must put my shoulder to the wheel, if Jekyll will let me. If Jekyll will only let me." He sees again, in his mind, the clear words of the will. They shine before him like a picture. They will not leave him. He is a loyal friend. He decides to stay near. He decides to watch. He decides to act when he can. He will try to save his friend from harm. He will be careful and kind. He will not judge. He will help. Chapter 3. Dr. Jekyll was quite at ease. 2 weeks later, Dr. Jekyll felt lucky and cheerful. He gave a nice dinner at his house. He invited 5 or 6 old friends. They were smart and respected men. They also knew good wine and enjoyed it. Mr. Utterson was one of them. When the others went home, Mr. Utterson stayed behind. This was not new. It had happened many times before. People who liked Mr. Utterson liked him very much. Hosts enjoyed keeping the quiet lawyer a little longer. After loud talk and laughter, they liked his calm company. With him, they could sit and rest their minds. They could practice being alone while someone kind sat near them. Dr. Jekyll felt the same. He was not different from other hosts. He sat on the other side of the fire. He was a large, well-made man of about 50. His face was smooth. He looked able and kind. Maybe there was a small, sly look sometimes, but he still seemed good in every way. You could see by his face that he cared for Mr. Utterson. He had a warm and true love for him as a friend. "I have wanted to speak with you, Jekyll," Mr. Utterson began. "Do you remember your will?" A careful person could see that this subject was not pleasant. Still, the doctor answered in a light way. "My poor Utterson," he said, "you are unlucky to have me as a client. I never saw a man so worried about a will as you. The only other was Lanyon. He said my new science ideas were wrong. He smiled a little and added, 'Oh, I know he is a good man. Do not frown. He is an excellent man, and I plan to see more of him. But he is very stiff and narrow in his mind. He is loud and sure, yet he does not know everything.' I was never more disappointed in any man than in Lanyon. You know I never liked your will," said Utterson. He did not follow the new subject. "My will?" "Yes, I know," said the doctor, a little sharp. "You told me that." "Well, I will tell you again," said the lawyer. "I have learned something about the young man named Hyde." The large, handsome face of Dr. Jekyll became very pale, even to his lips. A dark look came into his eyes. "I do not want to hear more," he said. "I thought we had agreed not to talk about him." "What I heard was very bad," said Utterson. "It will not change anything. You do not understand my situation," said the doctor, speaking in a confused way. "I am in a very hard place, Utterson. My situation is very strange, very strange. It is the kind of thing that talking cannot fix, Jekyll," said Utterson. "You know me. I am a man you can trust. Tell me everything in secret. I am sure I can help you out of it." "My good Utterson," said the doctor, "you are very kind. You are truly kind, and I cannot find words to thank you. I believe you completely. I would trust you before any other man, even before myself, if I could choose. But it is not what you think. It is not as bad as that. And to make your good heart calm, I will tell you one thing. When I choose, I can be free of Mr. Hyde. I give you my hand on that. Thank you again and again. And I will add one small word, Utterson, and please take it well. This is a private matter. Please let it rest." Utterson looked into the fire and thought for a short time. "I have no doubt you are right," he said at last, and he stood up. "Well," said the doctor, "since we have spoken of this, and I hope for the last time, there is one point I want you to understand. I care very much about poor Hyde. I know you have seen him, he told me. I fear he was rude to you. But I truly take a very great interest in that young man. And if I am taken away, Utterson, I want you to promise me something. Please be patient with him. Please make sure he gets his rights. I think you would, if you knew everything. It would lift a weight from my mind if you would promise. I cannot say that I will ever like him," said the lawyer. "I do not ask that," said Jekyll, laying his hand on the other's arm. "I only ask for what is fair. Help him for my sake when I am no longer here." Utterson gave a deep sigh that he could not hold back. "Well," he said, "I promise." Chapter 4. The Carew Murder Case. Nearly a year passed. It was October in the year 18. London was shocked by a very cruel crime. People were even more surprised because the man who died was of high rank. There were only a few facts, but they were clear and terrible. A maid lived alone in a small house not far from the river. At about 11 at night, she went upstairs to go to bed. Later, in the small hours, a fog rolled over the city. But the first part of the night was cloudless. The lane under her window was very bright because the full moon shone on it. The maid was a romantic person. She sat on her little box under the window and looked out. She began to dream and think kind thoughts about the world. Later, when she told this story with tears on her face, she said that never in her life had she felt more at peace with all people or thought more kindly of the world. As she sat there, she saw an old and handsome gentleman with white hair walking along the lane. Coming to meet him was another man, very small. At first, she did not pay much attention to the small man. The two men came close to each other just under the maid's window, and they stopped and began to speak. The older man bowed and spoke with very pretty and polite manners. It did not seem that the subject was important. From the way he sometimes pointed, it even looked as if he was only asking the way. The moon shone on his face while he spoke, and the maid liked to watch it. His face seemed to breathe an innocent and old-fashioned kindness, and also something high and calm, like a sure and gentle pride. Then the maid looked at the other man. She was surprised to recognize him. He was Mr. Hyde. He had once visited her master, and she had taken a dislike to him. In his hand he held a heavy cane, and he played with it idly. He did not answer a word. He only listened, and he seemed to hold back his anger with great effort. His impatience was plain, as if he could hardly keep still. All at once he broke out in a great flame of anger. He stamped his foot. He waved the cane in the air. He behaved, as the maid later said, like a madman. The old gentleman took a step back. He looked very much surprised and a little hurt in his feelings. Then Mr. Hyde went beyond all bounds. He struck the old man with the cane and knocked him to the ground. The next moment, with ape-like fury, he trampled on his victim and sent down a storm of blows. The bones broke with a sound that could be heard, and the body jumped upon the roadway. At the horror of these sights and sounds, the maid fainted. It was 2:00 when she came to herself. She called for the police. The murderer was long gone. The victim lay in the middle of the lane, terribly and unbelievably mangled. The stick used for the deed, though it was made of a rare and very tough and heavy wood, had broken in the middle under such senseless cruelty. One splintered half had rolled into the gutter nearby. The other half, without doubt, had been carried away by the murderer. In the victim's clothes, the police found a purse and a gold watch. They found no cards or papers, except a sealed and stamped envelope. He had probably been carrying it to the post. It bore the name and address of Mr. Utterson. The next morning, before he was out of bed, this envelope was brought to the lawyer. As soon as he saw it and heard the facts, his mouth became very solemn. "I shall say nothing till I have seen the body," he said. "This may be very serious. Have the kindness to wait while I dress." With the same grave face, he ate his breakfast in haste and drove to the police station where the body had been carried. As soon as he came into the cell and looked, he nodded. "Yes," he said, "I recognize him. I am sorry to say that this is Sir Danvers Carew." "Good God, sir!" cried the officer. "Is it possible?" The next moment his eyes shone with the fire of his duty. "This will make a great noise," he said. "And perhaps you can help us to the man." He briefly told what the maid had seen, and he showed the broken stick. Mr. Utterson had already grown pale at the name of Hyde, but when the stick was laid before him, he could doubt no longer. Broken and battered as it was, he recognized it as one that he himself had given many years before to Henry Jekyll. "Is this Mr. Hyde a person of small stature?" he asked. "Particularly small and particularly wicked-looking is what the maid calls him," said the officer. Mr. Utterson reflected, and then he raised his head. "If you will come with me in my cab," he said, "I think I can take you to his house." By this time it was about 9 in the morning. It was the first fog of the season. A great chocolate-colored curtain hung over the sky, but the wind kept charging and pushing the banks of vapor. As the cab crept from street to street, Mr. Utterson saw many degrees and colors of half-light. Here it was dark like the end of evening. There he saw a glow, a rich brown like the light of a strange fire. In another place the fog opened for a moment, and a thin, tired shaft of daylight slipped in between the swirling wreaths. The dismal quarter of Soho, seen in these changing glimpses, with its muddy ways, its untidy passers-by, and its lamps which had never been put out or had been lit again to fight the mournful return of darkness, seemed to the lawyer like a part of some city in a bad dream. His thoughts were also very dark, and when he looked at the officer beside him, he felt a little of that fear of the law and of officers of the law which may sometimes touch even the most honest person. The cab stopped before the address. The fog lifted a little and showed him a dull, dirty street, a gin palace, a low French eating-house, and a small shop that sold penny papers and twopenny salads. Many ragged children huddled in the doorways. Many women of many different nations came out, key in hand, to have a morning glass. The next moment the fog came down again, dark brown, and shut him in from those rough surroundings. This was the home of Henry Jekyll's favorite, the home of a man who was heir to £250,000. An old woman opened the door. Her face was like ivory and her hair was like silver. It was an evil face, made smooth by false sweetness, but her manners were excellent. Yes, she said, this was Mr. Hyde's house, but he was not at home. He had come in very late last night, and he had gone away again in less than an hour. There was nothing strange in that, she added. His habits were very irregular, and he was often absent. For example, she had not seen him for nearly 2 months until yesterday. "Very well, then, we wish to see his rooms," said the lawyer. The woman began to say it was impossible. "I had better tell you who this person is," Mr. Utterson added. "This is Inspector Newcomen of Scotland Yard." A flash of hateful joy came to the woman's face. "Ah!" she said, "he is in trouble." "What has he done?" Mr. Utterson and the inspector looked at each other. "He does not seem a very popular character," said the officer. "And now, my good woman, please let this gentleman and me have a look." In the whole house, which was otherwise empty except for the old woman, Mr. Hyde had used only 2 rooms, but these 2 rooms were furnished with luxury and good taste. A closet was filled with wine. The dishes were silver. The table linen was fine. A good picture hung upon the wall, a gift, so Mr. Utterson supposed, from Henry Jekyll, who knew and loved art. The carpets were thick, and their colors were pleasant. At this moment, however, the rooms showed every mark of having been searched in a hurry just before. Clothes lay upon the floor, and their pockets were pulled inside out. Drawers that should have been locked stood open. On the hearth there was a pile of gray ashes, as if many papers had been burned. From these ashes the inspector pulled the butt end of a green check book which had resisted the fire. The other half of the broken stick was found behind the door. This settled his suspicions, and the officer said he was delighted. A visit to the bank made him even more pleased, for several £1,000s were found to be lying to the murderer's credit. "You may depend upon it, sir," he told Mr. Utterson. "I have him in my hand. He must have lost his head, or he would never have left the stick, or, above all, burned the checkbook. Money is life to that man. We have nothing to do but wait for him at the bank and send out the handbills." This last plan, however, was not easy to carry out. Mr. Hyde had very few people who knew him well. Even the master of the servant maid had seen him only twice. No one could find his family. He had never been photographed. The few people who could describe him disagreed widely, as common observers often do. Only on one point were they all the same. Each person felt a troubling, haunting sense that there was some unspoken deformity about him. They could not say what it was, but the feeling stayed with them. On that single point they all agreed. Chapter 5. Incident of the Letter. It was late in the afternoon when Mr. Utterson went to Dr. Jekyll's door. Poole, the butler, let him in at once. He led the lawyer past the kitchen rooms and across a small yard. Long ago, the yard had been a garden. Now it led to another building. Some people called it the laboratory, and others called it the dissecting rooms. Dr. Jekyll had bought the house from the family of a famous surgeon. The doctor liked chemistry more than cutting bodies, so he changed the rooms at the back of the garden to fit his chemical work. This was the first time the lawyer had been taken to that part of the house. He looked at the dark, plain building with no windows and felt curious and uneasy. He walked through the old theater room. Once, students had filled the seats and watched with eager eyes. Now the place was empty, thin, and silent. Tables were covered with bottles, glass tubes, and other chemical tools. The floor was messy with wooden crates and loose packing straw. Above his head, a foggy glass dome let in only weak light. At the far end, a short flight of stairs led to a door covered with red baize. Through this door, Mr. Utterson at last entered the doctor's cabinet. The private room was large. Glass cupboards ran along the walls. A tall mirror showed the whole body. A strong desk waited for business. 3 dusty windows looked out on the court, and iron bars crossed them. A fire burned in the grate. A lamp also gave light on the top of the chimney, because even inside the house the fog lay thick that day. Close to the warm fire sat Dr. Jekyll. He looked deathly ill. He did not stand to greet his friend. He held out a cold hand and welcomed him with a changed voice. "Now," said Mr. Utterson, after Poole had left them, "you have heard the news?" The doctor shivered. "The boys are crying it in the square," he said. "I heard them in my dining room." "One word," said the lawyer. "Sir Danvers Carew was my client. You are also my client. I must know what I am doing. You have not been foolish enough to hide this man?" "Utterson, I swear to God," cried the doctor. "I swear to God I will never set eyes on him again. I give you my word of honor. I am finished with him in this world. It is all at an end, and truly he does not need my help. You do not know him as I do. He is safe. He is quite safe. Mark my words. You will never hear of him again." The lawyer listened with a heavy heart. He did not like his friend's hot and feverish way of speaking. "You seem very sure," he said. "For your sake, I hope you are right. If there is a trial, your name might appear." "I am sure," said Jekyll. "I have reasons that I cannot share with anyone, but there is one thing on which you may advise me. I have received a letter. I do not know if I should show it to the police. I would like to leave it with you, Utterson. You will judge wisely, I am sure. I trust you very much." "You fear the letter may help them to find Hyde?" asked the lawyer. "No," said the doctor. "I cannot say I care what becomes of Hyde. I am done with him. I was thinking of my own good name, which this hateful business has already harmed." Utterson thought for a while. He was surprised by his friend's selfish tone, and yet he felt relieved. It sounded more normal than wild. "Well," he said at last, "let me see the letter." The letter was written in a strange, straight hand and signed Edward Hyde. It said, in few words, that Dr. Jekyll, who had been kind 1,000 times and had been repaid very badly, need not worry about the writer's safety, because the writer had sure ways to escape. The lawyer liked this letter more than he had expected. It made the friendship look a little better than he had thought, and he blamed himself for some of his dark suspicions. "Do you have the envelope?" he asked. "I burned it," said Jekyll. "I did it before I thought." But there was no postmark. The note was handed in at the door. "Shall I keep this and think about it tonight?" asked Utterson. "I wish you to judge for me entirely," said the doctor. "I have lost confidence in myself." "I will consider it," said the lawyer. "Now one more word. Was it Hyde who told you the terms in your will about your disappearance?" The doctor went pale, shut his mouth tight, and nodded. "I knew it," said Utterson. "He meant to murder you. You had a narrow escape." "I have had something even more important," said the doctor solemnly. "I have had a lesson. Oh God, Utterson, what a lesson I have had!" He covered his face with his hands for a moment. On his way out, the lawyer spoke with Poole. "By the way," he said, "a letter was handed in today. What was the messenger like?" But Poole was sure nothing had come except by the post. "Only circulars by that," he added. This news sent the visitor away with his fears renewed. Clearly the letter had come by the laboratory door. Perhaps it had even been written in the cabinet. If that was true, it must be judged in another way and handled with more care. As he walked, the newsboys were crying along the pavements until their voices were hoarse. "Special edition! Shocking murder of a member of Parliament!" That cry was the funeral words for one friend and client, and the lawyer feared that the good name of another friend might be pulled down into the whirl of the scandal. It was a hard and delicate decision that he had to make, and although he was used to depending on himself, he began to wish for advice. He could not ask for it directly, but perhaps, he thought, he could draw it out gently. Soon after, he sat by his own hearth. Mr. Guest, his head clerk, sat on the other side. Between them, at a carefully chosen distance from the fire, stood a bottle of very old wine that had long rested in the cool dark under the house. Outside, the fog lay over the drowned city. The lamps glimmered like red jewels through the mist, and the life of the town still rolled through the great streets with a sound like a mighty wind. But the room was bright with firelight. In the bottle the sharp acids had long ago faded. The deep color had softened with time, like the rich glow in stained glass. The warmth and taste of hot autumn afternoons on hillside vineyards seemed ready to be set free, as if the wine could drive away the fogs of London. Little by little the lawyer relaxed. There was no man from whom he kept fewer secrets than Mr. Guest, and he was not always sure that he kept as many as he meant. Guest had often gone on business to the doctor's house. He knew Poole. He could hardly have failed to hear that Mr. Hyde was often seen about the place. He might draw conclusions. So, thought the lawyer, would it not be best that he should see a letter that set the mystery right? Above all, Guest was a keen student and critic of handwriting. He would think it natural and helpful to be shown such a paper. The clerk was also a man of counsel. He would hardly read so strange a document without making a remark, and by that remark, Mr. Utterson might choose his course. "This is a sad business about Sir Danvers," said the lawyer. "Yes, sir, indeed. It has stirred a great deal of public feeling," said Guest. "The man, of course, was mad." "I would like to hear your view on that," said Utterson. "I have a paper here in his hand. This is between ourselves, for I hardly know what to do with it. It is a bad business at best, but here it is, quite in your way, a murderer's handwriting." Guest's eyes brightened, and he sat down at once and studied the paper with care. "No, sir," he said after a while. "Not mad, but the hand is odd." "And by all accounts a very odd writer," added the lawyer. Just then the servant entered with a note. "Is that from Dr. Jekyll, sir?" asked the clerk. "I thought I knew the writing." "Anything private, Mr. Utterson? Only an invitation to dinner. Why? Do you want to see it?" "One moment. Thank you, sir." The clerk laid the 2 sheets of paper side by side and carefully compared them. He looked from one to the other again and again and studied every stroke. "Thank you, sir," he said at last, and returned both. "It is a very interesting autograph." There was a pause. Mr. Utterson struggled with himself, then asked suddenly, "Why did you compare them, Guest?" "Well, sir," said the clerk, "there is a rather strange likeness. The 2 hands are the same in many points, only the slope is different." "Rather curious?" said Utterson. "It is, as you say, rather curious," returned Guest. "I would not speak of this note, you know," said the master. "No, sir," said the clerk. "I understand." That night, when Mr. Utterson was alone, he locked the note into his safe, where it stayed from that time forward. "What?" he thought. "Henry Jekyll forged for a murderer." His blood ran cold in his veins. He stood still in the quiet room and felt the chill spread through him as if ice had touched his heart. Chapter 6. Incident of Dr. Lanyon. Time moved on. A great reward was offered, many thousands of pounds, because the death of Sir Danvers felt like a harm done to all the people. But Mr. Hyde was gone. He had slipped out of the reach of the police as if he had never existed. Men searched and asked and watched. They found many things about his past, and all were bad. There were stories of his cruelty, both cold and violent. There were stories of his low life, his strange companions, and the hatred that seemed to follow him wherever he went. But about where he was now, there was not even a whisper. From the morning he left the house in Soho, the day of the murder, he was simply wiped away like a mark from a slate. Little by little, as the days passed, Mr. Utterson's first hot fear grew cool. He felt more quiet in himself. In his mind, the death of Sir Danvers was, in a sad way, paid for by the vanishing of Mr. Hyde. Now that this evil power was gone, a new life began for Dr. Jekyll. He came out from his lonely rooms. He met his friends again. He became once more a welcome guest and a kind host. He had always been known for charity. Now people also spoke of his religion. He kept busy. He walked in the open air. He did good. His face opened and brightened, as if he felt inside that he was serving others. For more than 2 months, the doctor seemed at peace, and those who cared for him felt hope grow strong in their hearts. On the 8th of January, Mr. Utterson dined at the doctor's house with a small party. Dr. Lanyon was there. The host's face moved from one friend to the other, just as in the old days when the three men were close and could hardly bear to be apart. But on the 12th, and again on the 14th, the door was shut against the lawyer. "The doctor is kept to the house," Poole said, "and he sees no one." On the 15th, Mr. Utterson tried again, and again he was refused. For 2 months he had seen his friend almost every day, and now this sudden emptiness pressed on his spirits. On the 5th night he asked Mr. Guest to dine with him. On the 6th he went to see Dr. Lanyon. At that house he was not turned away, but when he entered he was shocked by the change in Lanyon's face. It was as if a death order were written clearly upon it. The rosy, healthy man had become pale. His flesh had fallen away. He looked balder and older. Yet these quick signs of the body's fall were not what most struck the lawyer. There was a look in the eyes, and a manner of speaking and moving that showed a fear deep in the mind. It was hard to think that such a brave doctor would fear death. Yet that was what Mr. Utterson began to suspect. Yes, he thought, he is a doctor. He must know his own state, and that his days are few, and the knowledge is more than he can bear. Still, when Mr. Utterson spoke aloud about his poor looks, doctor, Lanyon answered firmly, like a man who had decided his fate. "I have had a shock," he said, "and I shall never recover. It is a matter of weeks. Well, life has been pleasant. I liked it. Yes, sir, I used to like it. I sometimes think that if we knew everything, we would be more glad to go away." "Jekyll is ill, too," said Mr. Utterson. "Have you seen him?" Lanyon's face changed at once, and he lifted a shaking hand. "I wish to see or hear no more of Dr. Jekyll," he said in a loud, unsteady voice. "I am quite done with that person. Please spare me any mention of one whom I regard as dead." "Tut, tut," said Mr. Utterson. After a long silence he asked, "Can I do anything?" "We are 3 very old friends, Lanyon. We shall not live to make others." "Nothing can be done, doctor," Lanyon answered. "Ask him yourself." "He will not see me," said the lawyer. "I am not surprised," said Lanyon. "Some day, Utterson, after I am dead, perhaps you will learn the right and the wrong of this. I cannot tell you now. In the meantime, if you can sit and talk with me of other things, for God's sake stay and do so. But if you cannot keep clear of this cursed subject, then in God's name go, for I cannot bear it." As soon as he reached home, Mr. Utterson wrote to Dr. Jekyll. He complained that the door was closed to him. He asked why there was this sad break with Lanyon. The next day brought a long answer. Many parts were gentle and full of feeling. Some lines were dark and hard to understand. The quarrel with Lanyon could not be cured. "I do not blame our old friend," Jekyll wrote, "but I share his view that we must never meet. From this time I mean to lead a life of extreme seclusion. Do not be surprised, and do not doubt my friendship, if my door is often shut even to you. You must allow me to go my own dark way. I have brought on myself a punishment and a danger that I cannot name. If I am the chief of sinners, I am the chief of sufferers also. I did not believe that this earth held a place for pains and fears so unmanning. You can do one thing only, Utterson, to lighten this fate. Respect my silence." Mr. Utterson was amazed. The dark influence of Hyde had been taken away. The doctor had gone back to his old work and old friends. Only a week ago the future had smiled with every promise of a cheerful and honored age, and now, in a moment, friendship, peace of mind, and the whole course of his life were wrecked. So great and sudden a change pointed to madness, and yet, remembering Lanyon's face and words, the lawyer felt there must be some deeper cause that lay hidden from him. A week later, Dr. Lanyon took to his bed, and in something less than a fortnight he was dead. The night after the funeral, which had moved Mr. Utterson to the heart, he locked the door of his business room. Sitting there by the light of a sad candle, he took out an envelope addressed in the hand and sealed with the seal of his dead friend. On the outside, in strong words, it said, "Private, for the hands of G.J. Utterson alone, and if he dies first, to be destroyed unread." The lawyer feared to look at what lay within. "I have buried one friend today," he thought. "What if this should cost me another?" Then he condemned the fear as unfaithful to the dead and broke the seal. Inside was another paper, likewise sealed, and on the cover was written, "Not to be opened till the death or disappearance of Dr. Henry Jekyll." Mr. Utterson could not trust his eyes. Yes, the word was disappearance. Here again, as in the strange will that he had long ago returned to its writer, were the idea of a disappearance and the name of Henry Jekyll set together. But in the will that thought had sprung from the dark hint of the man Hyde. It had been written with a purpose too plain and too terrible. Written now by the hand of Lanyon, what could it mean? A great curiosity rose in the trustee to set aside the rule, open the paper at once, and hurry straight to the bottom of these mysteries. But professional honor and faith to his dead friend were strong duties. He put the packet to sleep in the inmost corner of his private safe. It is one thing to quiet curiosity, and another to conquer it. From that day on, it may be doubted whether Mr. Utterson wanted the company of his surviving friend with the same eager heart. He thought of Dr. Jekyll kindly, but his thoughts were troubled and afraid. He went to call, yes, but perhaps he felt some relief when he was not allowed to enter. Perhaps in his heart he preferred to speak with Poole upon the doorstep, with the air and the sounds of the open city around them, rather than to go into that house of chosen bondage and sit with its hidden and silent master. Poole had no pleasant news. The doctor, it seemed, now more than ever shut himself up in the cabinet over the laboratory, and sometimes he even slept there. He was low in spirits. He had grown very silent. He did not read. It looked as if something heavy lay upon his mind. Men came to the back door with small packets of chemicals. Sometimes they were taken in, sometimes they were sent away unopened. Poole said that his master wrote note after note asking for this or that drug, and then sent a second note to say that the last supply was not pure. At night, a light burned late in the cabinet. In the morning, it still burned, as if the night had not ended there. The house was quiet like a sick room. The servants walked softly and spoke in low voices. They listened for the bell and ran to it at once. They waited for orders that seldom came. Mr. Utterson became used to the unchanging tone of these reports. Because nothing changed, he began to visit less often. Yet he could not forget what the last months had been like when hope was new. He remembered the dinners, the warm talk, and the kind smile on Jekyll's face. He remembered the open-air walks and the hands held out to the poor. These memories came back to him when he sat alone by his fire. He told himself that the city had many fogs and that one day a wind would come and lift the fog from that house too. He hoped to see his friend come out once more into the light. But hope and fear fought inside him, and fear often won. Still he went now and then. He stood on the step and spoke with Poole. He asked if there was any change. Poole would shake his head. "The doctor keeps to the cabinet," he would say. "He eats little. He sees no one. He asks for a drug, and then he sends it back. He says it is not the right kind. He will not explain. Sometimes I think he does not sleep at all." Then Poole would stop himself, like a man who had almost said too much. He would look at the barred windows and at the lamp over the door and fall silent. The lawyer would look there too, and then go away, carrying his heavy thoughts with him. At night, when the house was still, Mr. Utterson would unlock his safe and take out the sealed packet. He would hold it and read the words again, "Not to be opened till the death or disappearance of Dr. Henry Jekyll." He would think of Lanyon's pale face and shaking hand. He would repeat the dates to himself as if keeping count could give him help. The 8th, the 12th, the 14th, the 15th. He felt, as honest men sometimes feel, that a net was slowly drawing tight around his friend, and that he, who wished to help, could find no path that was right and clear. So the weeks went by. The lawyer still did his work. He met his clients. He read his papers. He walked the streets of London and listened to its deep voice. Yet often his feet turned of their own will down the road to the square. He passed the door and did not ring. He listened to the dull silence inside and to the slow traffic outside. He looked up at the dusty windows with their iron bars. He looked at the lamp above the step and the worn stone below it. Then he went home again and sat by his fire with a thoughtful face, and the fear in his heart did not leave him. At last even his habit of hope grew thin. He said to himself, if Jekyll wished to see me, he would open the door. If he wished for fresh air, he would go out into it. I can only be ready when I am called. Because the message from the house was always the same, he began to go more seldom. Once he had visited almost daily, then it was every other day. Soon it was once a week. At last he passed that way only by chance, and he did not look up at the windows. But in his heart the fear remained. He felt that something hidden and powerful was at work in that still house, and that the end, whatever it was moving nearer day by day. Chapter 7. Incident at the Window. It was Sunday. Mr. Utterson was on his usual walk with Mr. Enfield. They went again along the small back street. When they came to the door, they both stopped and looked at it. "Well," said Enfield, "that story is over now. We will never see Mr. Hyde again." "I hope not," said Utterson. "Did I tell you that I once saw him too? I felt the same dislike that you felt. You could not see him and feel anything else," said Enfield. "And by the way, you must have thought I was foolish. I did not know this was the back way to Dr. Jekyll's house. It was also a little your fault. You helped me find it out at last." "So you learned it," said Utterson. "If that is so, we can step into the yard and look at the windows. To tell the truth, I am worried about poor Jekyll. Even standing outside, I think the sight of friends may be good for him." The little yard was cool and a bit damp. It was already like early evening, though the sky above was still bright with the sunset. There were 3 windows. The middle window was half open. Dr. Jekyll sat beside it, taking the air. His face showed deep sadness, like a lonely prisoner with no hope. Utterson saw him and called to him. "What? Jekyll!" he cried. "I hope you are better?" "I feel very low, Utterson," said the doctor in a dull voice. "Very low. But it will not last long, thank God." "You stay indoors too much," said the lawyer. "You should come out and walk. Mr. Enfield and I do it to keep our blood moving. This is my cousin, Mr. Enfield, Dr. Jekyll. Come now, take your hat and have a short walk with us." "You are very kind," said Jekyll with a long sigh. "I would like to, very much," But no, 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 it is quite impossible. I dare not. Still, Utterson, I am glad to see you. It is a real pleasure. I would ask you and Mr. Enfield to come up, but the room is not fit for guests. Then the best thing, said the lawyer in a friendly way, is for us to stay here and talk with you from where we are. That is just what I was going to say, said the doctor, and he smiled. But the smile died at once. His face changed in a moment. A look of very great fear and sadness came over him. It was so strong that it made the two men below feel cold and scared. They saw it only for a second, for the window was shut down at once. That short look was enough. The two friends turned and left the yard without a word. They walked through the back street in silence. They did not speak until they came to a busier road nearby, where even on a Sunday there were still some people and some sounds. Then Mr. Utterson turned and looked at his friend. Both men were pale. In each face the other saw the same fear. God forgive us, said Mr. Utterson. Mr. Enfield only nodded very seriously and walked on again in silence. Chapter 8. The Last Night. Mr. Utterson was sitting by his fire after dinner. It was evening. He was calm and sleepy. Suddenly Poole came to his house. Poole was Dr. Jekyll's butler. "Bless me, Poole, why are you here?" said Mr. Utterson. He looked again. "What is wrong?" "Is the doctor ill?" "Mr. Utterson," said Poole, "something is wrong." "Sit down," said the lawyer. "Here is a glass of wine. Take your time. Tell me clearly what you want." "You know the doctor's habits," said Poole. "He shuts himself up. Now he is shut up again in the cabinet. I do not like it, sir. I swear I do not like it. Mr. Utterson, I am afraid." "My good man," said the lawyer, "be clear. What are you afraid of?" "I have been afraid for a week," said Poole in a hard voice. "I cannot bear it any more." His face showed his fear. His voice was rough. He did not look at Mr. Utterson. He held the wine on his knee and did not drink. He stared at a spot on the floor. "I cannot bear it any more," he said again. "Come," said the lawyer. "You must have a good reason." "Something is very wrong. Try to tell me." "I think there has been foul play," said Poole in a low, hoarse voice. "Foul play!" cried the lawyer. He felt afraid and a little angry. "What foul play? What do you mean?" "I dare not say," said Poole. "But will you come with me and see for yourself?" Mr. Utterson stood up at once. He took his hat and his greatcoat. He saw the great relief on Poole's face. He also saw the wine still full when Poole set it down. Then they left together. It was a wild, cold March night. The moon was pale. It looked tilted as if the wind had pushed it back. Very thin clouds ran across the sky like soft cloth. The wind was strong. It made talking hard. It blew cold on their faces. The streets were almost empty. Mr. Utterson thought he had never seen that part of London so bare. He wished to see other people. He wished to touch a friend's hand. He tried to be brave, but a heavy fear grew in his mind. They came to the square. The wind blew dust all around. Thin trees in the garden beat against the railings. Poole had walked fast, a step or two ahead. Now he stopped in the middle of the pavement. The night was bitter, but he took off his hat and wiped his brow with a red handkerchief. He was not tired from walking. The wet on his face was from fear and pain. His face was white. His voice was harsh and broken. "Well, sir," he said, Here we are. God grant nothing is wrong. Amen, Poole, said the lawyer. Poole knocked softly. The door opened on the chain. A voice from inside said, "Is that you, Poole?" "It's all right," said Poole. "Open the door." They went in. The hall was bright with light. The fire was high. All the servants stood near the hearth, close together like a flock of sheep. When they saw Mr. Utterson, the housemaid began to cry in a thin, shaky way. The cook cried, "Bless God, it's Mr. Utterson," and ran forward as if she would hug him. "What is this?" said the lawyer sharply. "Are you all here?" "This is very irregular. Your master would not like it." "They are all afraid," said Poole. No one spoke. The room was very still, except for the maid, who now cried loudly. "Be quiet," Poole told her. His voice was fierce. All the servants jumped and turned toward the inner door. Their faces showed a dreadful fear. "Now," said Poole to the knife boy, "give me a candle. We must do this at once." Then he asked Mr. Utterson to follow him. He led the way to the back garden. "Now come quietly," he whispered. "I want you to hear, but I do not want you to be heard. And listen, sir, if he asks you to come in, do not go." Mr. Utterson shook with sudden nerves, but he found his courage. He followed Poole into the laboratory building. They passed through the old theater with its crates and bottles. They came to the bottom of the stairs. Poole put the candle down and motioned the lawyer to stand aside and listen. Then Poole, making a clear effort to be brave, went up and knocked with an unsteady hand on the red-covered door of the cabinet. "Mr. Utterson, sir, asks to see you," he called. He signed wildly to the lawyer to listen. A voice answered from inside. "Tell him I cannot see anyone," it said in a complaining way. "Thank you, sir," said Poole, almost with triumph. He took up the candle. He led Mr. Utterson back across the yard and into the big kitchen. The fire here was out. Beetles jumped on the floor. "Sir," said Poole, looking straight into the lawyer's eyes, "was that my master's voice?" "It seems very much changed," said Mr. Utterson. He was pale too, but he looked back firmly. "Changed?" "Yes," said Poole. "Do you think I could be wrong after 20 years? "No, sir. My master is gone. He was made away with 8 days ago. That night we heard him cry to God. And who is in there now? And why is it there? Sir, this is a thing that cries to heaven." "This is a strange tale, Poole," said Mr. Utterson. "It is a wild story." He bit his finger and thought. If Dr. Jekyll has been murdered, why would the murderer stay in the house? That does not make sense. "You are hard to please, sir," said Poole, "but I will satisfy you yet. All this last week, the thing in that cabinet has been crying night and day for a kind of medicine. It cannot get the right kind. Sometimes the master wrote his orders on a paper and threw it down the stairs. That is all we have had this week. Papers, a closed door, and meals left on the step when no one was looking. Every day, and even 2 or 3 times a day, there were orders and complaints. I have run to every big chemist in town. Each time I brought the drug back, there was a new paper. 'Send it back, it is not pure.' Then an order to a different shop. 'Sir, the drug is wanted very badly for something.' 'Do you have any of these papers?' asked Mr. Utterson. Poole took a crumpled paper from his pocket. The lawyer bent close to the candle and read, "Doctor. Jekyll presents his compliments to Messrs. Maw. He assures them that their last sample is impure and quite useless for his present purpose. In the year 18, Dr. J purchased a somewhat large quantity from Messrs. M. He now begs them to search with most careful care, and if any of the same quality is left, send it at once. Expense is no matter. The importance of this to Dr. J can hardly be exaggerated. Then the writing changed and shook. For God's sake, find me some of the old. This is a strange note, said Mr. Utterson. Then sharply, why is it open? The man at Maw's was very angry, said Poole. He threw it back at me like dirt. This is the doctor's hand, you are sure? Said the lawyer. I thought it looked like it, said Poole, sullen at first. Then he spoke with feeling. But what does the writing matter? I have seen him. Seen him? Said Mr. Utterson. Well? It happened like this, said Poole. I came in suddenly from the garden into the theater. It seems he had slipped out to search for the drug. The cabinet door was open. He stood at the far end, digging among the crates. He looked up when I came, gave a cry, and ran upstairs into the cabinet. I saw him for only a minute, but the hair on my head stood up. Sir, if that was my master, why did he wear a mask? If it was my master, why did he cry like a rat and run from me? I have served him too long to mistake him. These are strange things, said Mr. Utterson, but I think I see the truth. Your master is ill. It is one of those sicknesses that hurt and also change the body. That explains the voice. That explains the mask and why he avoids his friends. He is desperate to find this drug. He hopes it will help him. God grant he is not deceived. This is my explanation. It is sad and terrible, but it is plain and natural. It saves us from wild fears. Sir, said Poole, turning very pale, that thing is not my master. The truth is this. He looked around and whispered, My master is a tall, fine man. That one was more like a dwarf. Mr. Utterson started to object. Oh, sir, cried Poole, do you think I do not know my master after 20 years? Do you think I do not know where his head comes to on the cabinet door? I saw him there every morning of my life. No, sir, that thing in a mask was never Doctor. Jekyll. God knows what it was, but not Doctor. Jekyll. I believe in my heart there has been murder. Poole, said the lawyer. If you say so, I must make sure. I wish to spare your master's feelings. I am puzzled by this note that seems to prove he is alive, but it is my duty to break that door if I must. Ah, Mr. Utterson, that is talk I like, said Poole. Now the second question, said Mr. Utterson. Who will do it? You and me, sir, said Poole without fear. Very well said, said the lawyer. Whatever happens, I will see you do not suffer for it. There is an axe in the theater, said Poole. You may take the kitchen poker. The lawyer took the heavy poker and weighed it in his hand. Poole, he said, we are putting ourselves in danger. That is true, sir, said the butler. Then we must be honest, said the lawyer. We think more than we have said. Let us speak it. The masked figure you saw, did you know it? It went so fast, and the body was bent, said Poole. I can hardly swear. But if you mean, was it Mr. Hyde? Yes, I think it was. He was about the same size. He moved in the same quick, light way. And who else could enter by the laboratory door? Remember, at the time of the murder, he still had the key. And that is not all. Have you met Mr. Hyde, sir? Yes, said the lawyer. I spoke with him once. Then you know, said Poole, how strange he was. He gave a man a turn. I cannot say it well, sir. only that he made your marrow feel cold and thin." "I felt something like that," said Mr. Utterson. "Just so," said Poole. "Well, when that masked thing like a monkey jumped from the chemicals and ran into the cabinet, my spine went cold like ice. I know it is not proof, but a man has his feelings. By my Bible it was Mr. Hyde." "Aye," said the lawyer. "My fears go the same way. Evil was sure to come from that connection. I believe you. I believe poor Harry is killed, and I believe his murderer is still hiding in the room. Let our name be vengeance. Call Bradshaw." The footman came. He was very white and nervous. "Be brave, Bradshaw," said the lawyer. "This waiting is hurting all of you." "We mean to end it. Poole and I will force the cabinet door. If all is well, I will take the blame. But if anything is wrong, or if someone tries to escape by the back, you and the boy go round with good sticks. Stand at the laboratory door. You have 10 minutes to get there." Bradshaw left. The lawyer looked at his watch. "Now, Poole, let us go to ours," he said. He put the poker under his arm and went into the yard. Clouds had covered the moon. It was dark. The wind came in puffs into that deep well of buildings. The candle flame jumped and swung. They reached the shelter of the theatre and sat without speaking to wait. London hummed far away. Near them it was very still. Only one sound broke the quiet: a footstep walking up and down on the floor of the cabinet. "It walks all day, sir," whispered Poole, "and most of the night. Only when a new sample comes from the chemist there is a little break. A bad conscience is an enemy to rest. Ah, sir, there is blood in every step. Listen closer. Put your heart in your ears. Is that the doctor's foot?" The steps were light and odd. They swung a little, though they were slow. It was not the heavy tread of Henry Jekyll. Mr. Utterson sighed. "Is there never anything else?" he asked. "Once," said Poole. "Once I heard it weeping." "Weeping? How?" said the lawyer. He felt a cold fear. "Weeping like a woman or a lost soul," said the butler. "I came away with that in my heart." I wanted to weep too. The 10 minutes ended. Poole pulled an axe from under straw. They set the candle on the table near the door. The patient foot still went up and down. They held their breath and went close. "Jekyll!" cried Mr. Utterson in a loud voice. "I demand to see you." He waited. There was no reply. "I warn you," he said. "Our doubts are awake. I must and shall see you. If not by fair means, then by force." "Utterson," said the voice, "for God's sake, have mercy." "That is not Jekyll's voice, it is Hyde's," cried Mr. Utterson. "Down with the door, Poole." Poole swung the axe. The blow shook the place. The red door jumped against the lock and hinges. A terrible screech came from the cabinet like an animal in fear. The axe fell again. The panels cracked. The frame shook. 4 blows fell. The wood was tough. The fittings were good. On the 5th, the lock broke, and the wreck of the door fell in on the carpet. They stood back. They were shocked by the noise they had made and the stillness that followed. They peered in. The cabinet lay before them in soft lamplight. A good fire burned and talked on the hearth. The kettle sang a thin song. A drawer or two were open. Papers lay neat on the desk. Near the fire, the things for tea were ready. It was the quietest room in London, you would have said, except for the glass presses full of chemicals. In the middle lay the body of a man. It was twisted and still moved a little. They stepped on tiptoe and turned it over. They saw the face of Edward Hyde. He wore clothes far too big for him, the clothes of the doctor's size. The cords in his face still twitched, but life was gone. In his hand was a crushed little bottle. The air smelled strongly of bitter kernels. Mr. Utterson knew he was looking at one who had killed himself. "We are too late," he said. "Too late to save or punish. Hyde is gone to his account. Now we must find your master's body." They searched the building. Most of the ground floor was the theater, lighted from above. The cabinet stood over part of it and looked on the court. A corridor joined the theater to the by-street door. The cabinet also had its own stair. There were dark closets and a big cellar. They looked in all. The closets were empty, and dust fell from their doors. They had long been shut. The cellar was full of old junk from the last surgeon. When they opened it, a thick mat of cobweb fell, sealed for years. There was no trace of Henry Jekyll, dead or alive. Poole stamped on the stone floor. "He must be buried under here," he said, listening. "Or he ran away," said Mr. Utterson. He looked at the by-street door. It was locked. Near it, on the ground, lay a key with rust on it. "This does not look used," said the lawyer. "Used?" said Poole. "Look, sir. It is broken, as if a man stamped on it." "Aye," said Mr. Utterson. "And the brakes are rusty, too." They looked at each other with fear. "This is beyond me, Poole," said the lawyer. "Let us go back to the cabinet." They went up the stairs without speaking. They looked around the room again, sometimes glancing with awe at the dead body. On one table were signs of chemical work. There were little measured heaps of a white salt on glass dishes, ready for an experiment. The unhappy man had been stopped. "That is the same drug I brought," said Poole. At once the kettle boiled over with a sharp hiss. They went to the fire. An easy chair was drawn close. The tea things stood ready. Sugar was in the cup. There were several books on a shelf. One lay open by the tea things. Mr. Utterson was surprised to see it was a religious book that Jekyll had praised. But Jekyll had written in it with shocking bad words. Then they came to the tall mirror. They looked in with a sudden fear. The mirror was turned so it showed the glow on the ceiling, the fire sparkling many times in the glass fronts of the presses, and their own pale, frightened faces. "This mirror has seen strange things, sir," whispered Poole. "And none stranger than itself," said the lawyer softly. "What did Jekyll—" He stopped and then went on. "What could Jekyll want with it?" "You may well ask," said Poole. Next they turned to the business table. On the desk, among the neat papers, was a large envelope. It had Mr. Utterson's name in the doctor's hand. The lawyer opened it. Several papers fell out. The first was a will. It used the same strange words as the one from 6 months ago. It was to act as a will if he died and as a gift if he disappeared. But one thing was new. The name Edward Hyde was gone. In its place, to his great surprise, Mr. Utterson read his own name, Gabriel John Utterson. He looked at Poole, then at the paper, then at the dead man on the carpet. "My head is spinning," he said. "Hyde has been in control for days. He did not like me. He must have been angry to see his own name taken off, yet he did not destroy this paper." He picked up the next page. It was a short note in Jekyll's hand, and it was dated at the top. "Oh, Poole!" cried the lawyer. "He was alive today." "He cannot be gone in such a short time. He must still be alive. He must have fled. But why? How? And can we call this a suicide? We must be careful. We might hurt your master's name." "Why not read it, sir?" said Poole. "I fear to read," said the lawyer. "God grant I have no reason." He lifted the paper and read, "My dear Utterson, When this comes to you, I shall have disappeared. I do not know how, but my heart and all the facts of my nameless life tell me the end is sure and must be soon. Go now and read first the story which Lanyon said he would place in your hands. If you wish to know more, read my confession. Your unworthy and unhappy friend, Henry Jekyll. There was a third paper? Asked Mr. Utterson. Here, sir, said Poole. He gave him a big packet sealed in many places. The lawyer put it in his pocket. Say nothing of this, he said. If your master has fled or is dead, we can still save his good name. It is now 10 o'clock. I must go home and read these papers in quiet. I will be back before midnight. Then we will send for the police. They went out. They locked the theater door. Mr. Utterson left the servants again by the hall fire. He went back to his office. He would read the 2 stories that would explain the mystery. Chapter 9. Dr. Lanyon's Narrative. On the 9th of January, 4 days ago, I received a registered letter in the Evening Post. The writing on the cover was by my colleague and old school friend, Henry Jekyll. I was very surprised. We were not used to writing letters to each other. I had seen him only the night before and had dined with him. Nothing in our talk seemed to call for a letter, and still less for a registered one. When I read the paper inside, my surprise grew greater. This is what it said. 10th December, 18. Dear Lanyon, you are one of my oldest friends. We have sometimes disagreed about science, but never, on my side, about friendship. If you had said to me any day, Jekyll, my life, my honor, my reason depend on you, I would have given my left hand to help you. Lanyon, now my life, my honor, my reason are in your hands. If you fail me tonight, I am lost. After these words, you may think I am going to ask you to do something shameful. Judge for yourself. Put off every other plan for tonight, even if an emperor calls you to his bed. Take a cab, unless your own carriage is at the door. With this letter in your hand, go straight to my house. Poole, my butler, has orders. He will be waiting with a locksmith. The door of my cabinet must be forced. You must go in alone. Open the glass cupboard marked E on the left. Break the lock if it is shut. Take out with all its things just as they are, the 4th drawer from the top, or the 3rd from the bottom, the same. I fear to guide you wrong in my trouble, but even if I do err, you will know the right drawer by its contents. Some powders, a small bottle, and a paper book. Carry this drawer back to your house in Cavendish Square exactly as it stands. That is the first part, now the second. If you leave at once, you should be home long before midnight. I give you this time, not only in case of delays that no one can prevent or guess, but also because it is better to do what remains when your servants are in bed. At midnight, be alone in your consulting room. Open the door with your own hand to a man who will come in my name. Put the drawer that you brought from my cabinet into his hands. Then your part is done. You will have earned my full thanks. 5 minutes later, if you insist on a reason, you will understand that these strange plans are of the greatest importance. If you fail in even one point, you may load your heart with my death or with the ruin of my mind. I am sure you will not play with this request, yet my heart sinks and my hand shakes as I think of the danger that you might. Think of me, in a strange place, under a black weight of trouble that no one can picture, and know that if only you are exact, my troubles will pass away like a story that is told. Help me, my dear Lanyon, and save your friend, H.J.P.S. I had already sealed this when a new terror struck me. The post may fail me, and this letter may not reach you till tomorrow morning. In that case, dear Lanyon, do my errand at the time that suits you best during the day, and again expect my messenger at midnight. It may already be too late, and if that night passes and nothing happens, you will know you have seen the last of Henry Jekyll. When I read this, I was sure my colleague had gone mad. Still, until that was proved without doubt, I felt bound to obey. The less I understood, the less fit I was to judge if it mattered. A letter so written could not be put aside without great risk. I rose from table, got into a hansom, and drove straight to Jekyll's house. The butler was waiting. He had also received a registered letter with orders and had sent for a locksmith and a carpenter. They arrived while we spoke. We all went together through Old Doctor, Denman's surgical theatre, for that is the easy way into Jekyll's private cabinet. The door was strong, the lock was excellent. The carpenter said it would be much trouble and do great harm to force it. The locksmith almost lost hope. But he was a clever man. After 2 hours of work, the door stood open. The press marked E was not locked. I took out the drawer, had it filled up with straw, tied it in a sheet, and brought it back with me to Cavendish Square. There I looked at what was inside. The powders were neatly wrapped, but not with a chemist's perfect care. They were plainly made by Jekyll himself. I opened one paper and found a simple white crystal salt. The bottle was about half full of a blood-red liquid. It had a strong, sharp smell. To me, it seemed to contain phosphorus and some kind of ether. I could not guess the rest. The book was a common copybook and held little but a list of dates over many years. The entries stopped nearly a year ago, quite suddenly. Here and there a short word stood by a date, often no more than one word. Double came perhaps 6 times in a few hundred lines, and once, very early, and followed by many exclamation marks, total failure. All this sharpened my interest but told me almost nothing clear. Here were a bottle, some salt, and a record of many trials that, like too many of Jekyll's studies, had led to nothing useful. How could such things in my house touch the honor, sense, or life of my changeable friend? If his messenger could go to one place, why not to another? Even if there was some block, why should I receive this person in secret? The more I thought, the more I felt I was facing a disease of the brain. I sent my servants to bed, and I loaded an old revolver so that I would be ready to defend myself. Hardly had 12 o'clock struck over London when the knocker sounded very softly. I went myself. A small man stood crouched by the pillars of the porch. "Are you come from Dr. Jekyll?" I asked. He said yes, with a forced sign, and when I asked him in, he obeyed only after looking back sharply into the dark square. A policeman was not far away, coming with his lamp. At the sight, my visitor started and came on faster. I did not like these facts. As I took him into the bright light of my consulting room, I kept my hand ready on my weapon. Now I could see him clearly. I had never seen him before. He was small, as I said. His face had a shocking look. He was both very active in muscle and yet weak in health. Lastly, and worst, his near presence made me feel a strange, private trouble. I felt a kind of chill begin, and my pulse sank. At the time, I put it down to a strong personal dislike, and wondered at the strength of my symptoms. Later, I came to believe the cause lay deeper in human nature and turned on something higher than simple hate. This person, who from the first gave me what I can only call a horrible curiosity, was dressed in a way that would make most people laugh. His clothes, though rich and sober, were much too big for him. The trousers hanging and turned up, the waist of the coat dropped below his hips, the collar spread wide on his shoulders. Yet because there was something abnormal and ill-born in the very nature of the creature before me, something that seized, surprised, and revolted me. This odd look only matched and strengthened it. So to my interest in the man's character, there came also a wish to know his origin, his life, and his place in the world. All these thoughts took only a few seconds. My visitor burned with dark excitement. "Have you got it?" he cried. "Have you got it?" His impatience was so strong that he placed his hand on my arm and tried to shake me. I pushed him back, feeling a cold pain run along my blood at his touch. "Come, sir," I said. "You forget that I do not yet have the pleasure of your name. Sit down, please." I set the example and took my usual chair, trying to act as I do with any patient, in spite of the late hour, my heavy thoughts, and the horror I felt. "I beg your pardon, doctor." "Lanyon," he answered politely enough, "what you say is fair. My impatience has run past my manners. I come on the request of your friend, doctor, Henry Jekyll, on a matter of weight, and I understood." He stopped and put a hand to his throat. For all his calm, I saw he fought tears and a fit of nerves. I understood. A drawer. I took pity on him, and perhaps on my own growing need to know. "There it is," I said, pointing. It lay on the floor behind a table, still tied in the sheet. He sprang to it, then pressed a hand over his heart. His teeth ground together. His face grew so ghastly that I feared for his life and mind. "Calm yourself," I said. He turned on me a dreadful smile, and as if in a last choice, he pulled away the sheet. At the sight, he gave one loud sob of great relief. I sat like stone. The next moment, in a voice almost steady, he asked, "Have you a measuring glass?" I rose with an effort and gave him one. He nodded thanks, measured a small amount of the red liquid, and added some of the powder. The mix, red at first, brightened as the crystals melted, began to bubble, and sent up tiny fumes. Suddenly the boiling stopped, and the color turned dark purple. Then it slowly faded to a thin green. My visitor watched keenly, smiled, set the glass on the table, and looked at me with careful eyes. "And now," he said, "to finish. Will you be wise? Will you be guided? Will you let me take this glass and leave your house without more words? Or does your hunger to know command you? Think before you answer, for I will do as you say. If you let me go, you will be as you were, no richer and no wiser, unless the feeling of having helped a man in deadly need may be called a kind of wealth of the soul. Or, if you choose, a new land of knowledge and new roads to fame and power will open here, at once, in this room, and your eyes shall be struck by a wonder that would shake the faith of Satan himself." "Sir," I said, trying to seem calm, "you speak in riddles, and you cannot wonder that I do not believe much. But I have gone too far with these strange acts to stop before I see the end." "Good," he said. "Lanyon, remember your vows. What follows is under the seal of our calling. And now, you who have kept to narrow material views, you who denied high medicine, you who mocked your betters, look." He put the glass to his lips and drank it down. A cry followed. He reeled, staggered, clutched the table, and held on. His eyes were bloodshot. His mouth gasped. As I stared, there came, I thought, a change. He seemed to swell. His face turned suddenly black. The features melted and altered. In the next moment I leaped to my feet and sprang back against the wall, my arms raised to shield me, my mind drowned in terror. "Oh God!" I screamed, and "Oh God!" Again and again, for there before me, pale, shaking, half fainting, and groping with his hands like a man come back from death, stood Henry Jekyll. What he told me in the next hour I cannot bring myself to write. I saw what I saw, I heard what I heard. My soul grew sick. Now, though the image fades, I ask if I believe it, and I cannot answer. My life is shaken at the roots. Sleep has left me. A deadliest fear sits by me day and night. I feel my days are few and I must die, and yet I shall die still doubting. As for the great sin that man uncovered to me, though he wept and said he repented, I cannot think of it, even in memory, without a start of horror. I will say only one thing, Utterson, and if you can believe it, it is more than enough. The creature who crept into my house that night was, by Jekyll's own confession, called Hyde, and is hunted in every part of the land as the murderer of Carew. Hasty Lanyon. Chapter 10. Henry Jekyll's full statement of the case. I was born in the year 18 -- My family was rich. I had a quick mind. By nature I liked to work. I liked the respect of wise and good people. Everyone expected that I would have an honest and great future. My worst fault was a quick and happy spirit. This made many people happy, but it did not fit my proud wish to look serious in public. So I began to hide my private pleasures. When I grew older and looked at my life, I saw that I was already living a double life. Many men would talk loudly about the same small wrongs that I did. But I had set myself high goals. I felt shame. I hid my faults with a sickly fear of being found out. It was not the size of my faults, but my hard wish to be noble, that made me what I became. Deep inside me, the good part and the bad part were cut apart more than in most men. So I began to think very seriously about the hard law at the root of religion, the law that brings much pain. I was a deep double dealer, but not a hypocrite. Both sides of me were sincere. I was truly myself when I put away rules and fell into shame. I was also truly myself when I worked in the day to grow knowledge and to help the sad and the sick. My scientific work pointed to strange and high things. It shone a light on the war inside me. Each day, my moral mind and my thinking mind moved toward one truth. That truth, even in part, has ruined me. A person is not truly one, but truly two. I say two because I do not know more than that. Others will go further. They may show that a person is a mix of many small people inside. But in my life I went one way only. On the moral side and in my own body, I learned that a person has two kinds. In my mind, two natures fought. I could not say I was only one, because I was both. Early, even before my research showed any hope of a miracle, I liked to dream that the two parts could be split. If each part lived in a separate body, life would be easier. The unjust one could go his own way, free from hope and shame from his better twin. The just one could walk safely on the high path, doing good without fear of disgrace from an outside evil. The curse of mankind is that these unlike sticks are tied together. In the hurting womb of our thoughts, these two opposites fight without rest. How could they be split? I had reached this point when a light came from the laboratory table. I began to see more deeply how thin and mist-like our bodies are, even though they seem solid. I found some agents that could shake the flesh like wind moves a curtain. For two reasons, I will not go deep into this science. First, I learned that the heavy load of life is always tied to a person. If we try to throw it off, it comes back harder and more strange. Second, my discoveries were not complete, as my story will sadly show. It is enough to say this. I could feel my natural body as only the glow of some powers in my spirit. I learned to make a drug to push those powers from their seat and put in their place a second body and face. This second shape was also natural to me because it showed the lower parts of my soul. I waited a long time before I dared to test this in real life. I knew I risked death. A drug that could shake the very castle of the self might, by a little too much, or by bad timing, destroy the temple I wanted to change. But the pull of a new and deep truth beat my fear. I had made my tincture long before. I bought at once from a big chemist a large amount of one special salt. My tests showed that this was the final part I needed. Late one cursed night, I mixed the parts. I watched them boil and smoke in the glass. When the boiling stopped, I took courage and drank the potion. Terrible pains followed. My bones seemed to grind. I felt deadly sick. My soul felt a horror like birth or death. Then the pains fell away, and I woke as from a long illness. My feelings were strange and new, and, because they were new, sweet in a wild way. I felt younger, lighter, happier in body. Inside, I felt bold and careless. Pictures of pleasure ran fast through my mind, like a strong stream. The rules that bind a man seemed to be cut. I had a freedom of the soul that was new, but not innocent. I knew at once I was more wicked, 10 times more wicked. I was a slave to my first evil. The thought filled me like wine. I stretched my hands and cried with joy at these fresh feelings. At once I saw I had grown smaller. There was no mirror in that room then. The mirror near me as I write was brought later for this very work. The night was late and almost morning. The sky was still black, but ready to bring the day. The servants slept in their deepest sleep. Full of hope and pride, I chose to risk a walk in my new body to my bedroom. I crossed the yard under the stars. They seemed to look down in wonder at the first of my kind. I crept through halls like a stranger in my own house. I came to my room and saw for the first time the face of Edward Hyde. Now I must explain by guess, not by sure knowledge. The evil part in me, to which I had given the strong mark, was less strong and less grown than the good part I had set aside. In my life I had worked 9 parts out of 10 for effort, virtue, and control. So the evil part had less use and less wear. For this reason, I think, Edward Hyde was smaller, thinner, and younger than Henry Jekyll. Good shone on my one face. Evil was written plain on the other. Also evil, which I still believe is the deadly side of man, left on that body the look of deformity and decay. Yet when I saw that ugly idol in the glass, I did not feel hate. I felt a jump of welcome. This was also me. It seemed natural and human. It showed my spirit in a stronger, clearer way than the divided face I used to call my own. I was right in part. I have noticed that when I wore Hyde's look, no one could come near without a visible fear in the body. I think this is because all other people are mixed of good and bad, but Edward Hyde was pure evil. I stayed only a moment at the mirror. One more sure test was needed. Did I lose my old self forever? Must I run away before day from a house that was no longer mine? I hurried back to my cabinet. I mixed the cup again. I drank again. I suffered the pains again. Then I came back again with the body, size, and face of Henry Jekyll. That night I came to a fatal crossroad. If I had come to my discovery with a noble heart, if I had risked the test while full of holy, generous aims, all might have been different. From those pains of death and birth, I might have come out like an angel, not a fiend. The drug did not choose sides. It was not devilish or divine. It only shook the doors of the prison of my nature. Like the prisoners at Philippi, what was inside ran out. At that time my virtue slept. My evil, kept awake by pride, was quick to take the chance. The thing that came out was Edward Hyde. So I now had two selves and two looks. One was all evil. The other was still the old Henry Jekyll, the mixed man I had lost hope to reform. The movement was all toward the worse. Even then, I did not love the dry life of study alone. I still liked to be merry. My pleasures were not noble. I was well known and much respected, and I was growing older. This clash in my life felt worse each day. On this side, my new power called me, until I became its slave. I had only to drink to throw off the famous doctor's body, and to put on, like a thick cloak, the body of Edward Hyde. The idea made me smile. I prepared with careful care. I took and furnished the house in Soho where the police later found Hyde. I hired a housekeeper who I knew would be silent and without scruples. I told my servants at the square that Mr. Hyde, and I told them how he looked, had full freedom in my house. To avoid trouble, I even came there often as Hyde, so they would know him. I wrote the will you hated. If something happened to me as Jekyll, I could live on as Hyde without losing money. So I felt safe on every side and began to enjoy the strange safety of my place. Before me, men had hired rough men to do crimes while they kept their own names safe. I was the first to do so for pleasure. I was the first who could walk in public with a load of warm respect, and then in a moment throw it off like a boy and jump into the sea of liberty. For me, inside my strong cloak, safety was complete. Think of it, I did not even exist. If I could reach my lab door, if I had a few seconds to mix and drink the draught I kept ready, then whatever Hyde had done would fade like breath on a mirror. In his place, at home and calm by the midnight lamp, sat Henry Jekyll, who could laugh at suspicion. The pleasures I ran to in my mask were not noble. I choose a mild word. In the hands of Hyde, they soon turned monstrous. When I came back from such runs, I was shocked by the evil done by my second self. The creature I called from my soul and sent out to do his will was by nature wicked and cruel. He thought only of himself. He drank pleasure like an animal, even through the pain of others. He was hard like a stone. Henry Jekyll stood scared at the acts of Edward Hyde. But the case felt outside common law. It slowly loosed the hold of conscience. After all, it was Hyde, only Hyde, who was guilty. Jekyll was not worse. He woke again with his good parts still there. He even made haste when he could to repair the harm Hyde had done. So his conscience slept. I will not tell the dirty details of the evil I allowed, for even now I do not like to say I did them. I will speak of the warnings and the steps by which my payback came near. Once I met a trouble that brought no great result. As Hyde, I hurt a child. A passerby grew angry and stopped me. Later, I knew him as your kinsman. The doctor came, and the family too. For a time, I feared for my life. At last, to end their very just anger, Hyde took them to my door and paid them with a check signed by Henry Jekyll. I removed this danger for the future by opening a bank account for Edward Hyde. By bending my hand a little backward, I made him a true signature. I felt safe from fate. About 2 months before Sir Danvers was killed, I went out for one of my adventures. I came home late. Next day I woke with strange feelings. I looked around. I saw the proper furniture and the tall room in the square. I saw the pattern of the curtains and the mahogany bed. Still, I felt I had not woken there. I felt I had woken in the small room in Soho where I slept as Hyde. I smiled and began to study this trick of mind. I even dozed again. Then, in a more awake moment, I looked at my hand. You have often seen Jekyll's hand. It is large, firm, white, and pleasant. But the hand I saw in the yellow London morning was thin, tight with cords, dark in color, with thick black hair. It was the hand of Edward Hyde. I stared for half a minute in dull surprise. Then terror woke loud in me like the crash of cymbals. I jumped from bed and ran to the mirror. The sight made my blood turn thin and icy. Yes, I had gone to bed Henry Jekyll. I had woken Edward Hyde. How could this be? How could I mend it? It was late in the morning. The servants were up. My drugs were in the cabinet, far away, down 2 flights through the back passage, across the open court, and through the theater. I could cover my face, but I could not hide my short size. Then, sweet relief, the servants were used to the comings of my second self. I dressed as best I could in my own larger clothes. I passed through the house. Bradshaw stared and moved back at seeing Mr. Hyde at that hour and in such dress. 10 minutes later, I had taken the draught. I was Henry Jekyll again, sitting with a dark face pretending to eat breakfast. I had little wish to eat. This strange event, this twist of my old rule, was like the finger on the wall in Babylon. It spelled my doom. I began to think more seriously than ever about my double life. The part of me that I could send out had been used and fed much of late. It seemed that Hyde's body had grown. When I wore that shape, I felt a stronger blood. I began to fear that if this went on, the balance might fall forever. I might lose the power to change at will. I might become Edward Hyde for good. The drug did not always work the same. Once, early, it failed completely. Later, I had to double the dose, and once, with great risk of death, I had to take 3 times as much. These rare failures were my only shadow. Now, in the light of that morning, I saw a new fact. At first, the hard part was to throw off Jekyll's body. Lately, it had shifted. It was harder to throw off Hyde. All things pointed to this. I was slowly losing my hold on my first and better self. I was slowly joining to my second and worse. I had to choose. The two shared one memory, but the rest of their powers were not equal. Jekyll, who was mixed, shared in Hyde's pleasures with fear and with greedy taste by turns. Hyde did not care for Jekyll. He remembered him only as a robber thinks of the cave where he hides. Jekyll felt more than a father's care. Hyde felt more than a son's coldness. To choose Jekyll was to kill the secret appetites I had fed and lately treated even better. To choose Hyde was to kill 1,000 hopes and aims at one stroke, and to be forever despised and alone. It seemed an unfair choice. Yet there was one more weight in the scale. Jekyll would suffer sharply in the fires of self-denial. Hyde would not even know what he had lost. Strange as my case was, the choice was as old as mankind. The same pulls and fears come to any sinner who shakes. I chose the better part, like most men do, and like most, I lacked the strength to keep it. Yes, I chose the older, discontented doctor with friends and honest hopes. I said a strong farewell to the freedom, the younger step, the quick wishes, and the secret joys of Hyde. Perhaps I kept a small hidden wish, for I did not give up the house in Soho, nor did I burn Hyde's clothes in my cabinet. Still, for 2 months I was true. For 2 months I lived more strictly than ever before, and I felt the clean peace of a good conscience. But time wore away the new fear. The praise of conscience became a daily thing. I began to feel pains and longings, as if Hyde pushed inside, begging for freedom. At last, in an hour of moral weakness, I made and drank the draught again. When a drunk man argues with himself, he is not often stopped by the dangers of his dull body. In the same way, though I had thought long about my case, I did not make enough room for Hyde's total lack of moral sense and his blind rush to evil. By these I was punished. My devil had been in a cage. He came out roaring. Even while I mixed the cup, I felt a wilder pull to do wrong. I think this is why I grew so angry when I heard the polite words of my poor victim. I say before God, no sane man could do that crime for such a small cause. I struck with no more reason than a sick child who breaks a toy, but I had stripped myself of the balances that help even bad men to walk a little straight among traps. For me, to be tempted even a little was to fall. At once, the spirit of hell woke in me. It raged. With wild joy, I hit the man again and again. He did not fight back. I felt pleasure with every blow. Only when I grew tired did fear stab my heart like ice. A fog lifted from my mind. I saw that my life was now forfeit. I ran from the place. I was both proud and afraid. My hunger for evil felt full and also more hungry. My wish to live rose to the very top. I fled to the Soho house and burned my papers to be safe. Then I went out into the bright lamplit streets. My mind was split. I smiled at my crime and even planned more for the future, and yet I hurried on, always listening behind me for the steps of someone coming to catch me. Hyde sang a little song as he mixed the drink. He raised the glass as if to salute the dead man, and he drank. The pain of change had not yet stopped when I, Henry Jekyll, fell to my knees. Tears ran down my face, tears of thanks and of shame. I raised my hands to God. The curtain of my self-love tore from top to bottom. I saw my whole life at once. I saw myself as a child, walking with my father's hand. I saw the long hours of hard, kind work in my profession. Then I saw, again and again, the cursed horrors of my nights. I could have screamed. I prayed and wept, trying to cover the ugly pictures and sounds that rushed through my mind. Yet between my prayers, the hateful face of my sin stared straight into my soul. When that sharp pain of regret began to fade, joy came in its place. I knew what I must do. Hyde must be impossible from now on. Whether I wished it or not, I would be tied to the better part of my life. I rejoiced in this. I gladly took up the simple rules of ordinary life. With true resolve, I shut the door I had used so many times and crushed the key under my heel. The next day I heard the news. The murder could not be hidden. All knew Hyde was guilty. The dead man was much respected. It was not only a crime, it was a tragic madness. I think I was even glad to hear it. It put fear around me like a strong wall to keep me from falling. Jekyll was now my safe city. If Hyde showed his face for 1 second, every hand would rise to catch and kill him. I set myself to make the future pay for the past. I can truly say my promise brought some good. You know how hard I worked in those last months to ease pain. Many things were done for others. My days were quiet, almost happy. I did not grow tired of this good and gentle life. I think I enjoyed it more each day. But the curse of two aims still lived in me. When the first edge of my regret wore off, the lower side of me, so long indulged and so lately chained, began to growl for freedom. I did not dream of calling Hyde back. The very thought shocked me like fire. No, I was tempted as plain Henry Jekyll to make small secret sins and to play with my conscience. At last I fell, not as Hyde, but as a common hidden sinner. All things come to an end. Even the biggest cup fills at last. This short bending toward evil broke the balance of my soul. Still, I did not fear at once. The fall felt natural, like the old days before my discovery. It was a bright January day. The ground was wet where the frost had melted, but the sky was clear. Regent's Park was full of little winter songs and sweet hints of spring. I sat in the sun on a bench. The animal in me licked the lips of memory. The spiritual side felt sleepy. It promised to be sorry later, but would not start yet. I thought, after all, I am like other men. I even smiled as I compared my active goodwill with their lazy neglect. At that proud thought, a sick feeling came. A cold shake ran through me. Then it passed and left me weak. As the weakness went, I felt my thoughts change. I felt bolder. I held duty in contempt. The ties that bind a man seemed cut. I looked down. My clothes hung loose on my smaller limbs. The hand on my knee was thin, corded, and hairy. I was Edward Hyde again. A moment before I had been safe and honored, rich and loved. My dinner was set at home. Now I was hunted by all men, with no house, known as a murderer, and tied to the gallows. My reason shook, but it did not break. In my second form, my mind was often sharper and my spirit more springy. Where Jekyll might have failed, Hyde rose to the need. My drug was in my cabinet. How could I get to it? The lab door was shut. If I went by the house, my own servants would call the police. I must use another hand. I thought of Dr. Lanyon. How could I reach him? How persuade him? If I escaped the streets, how would I stand before him? How could I, a small, hateful stranger, make that great doctor break open his friend Jekyll's study? Then I remembered one thing I still had from my first self. I could write in my own hand. The plan lit up in a line from end to end. I fixed my clothes as best I could and called a passing cab. I drove to a hotel in Portland Street whose name I recalled. My look was comic in those big clothes, though my fate was tragic. The driver laughed. I gnashed my teeth at him with wild rage. His smile died. Good for him and for me, for I might have dragged him down in the next second. At the inn, my face was so black with anger that the servants shook. They did not dare to share a look. They took my orders and led me to a private room. They brought paper and pen. Hyde in true danger was new even to me. He shook with huge anger. He was tight as a string, ready for murder, hungry to hurt. Yet he was also clever. He mastered his fury by a hard act of will. He wrote 2 key letters, one to Lanyon and one to Poole. To be sure they would be sent, he ordered them to be registered and asked to see proof. Then he sat by the fire all day, biting his nails. He ate alone with his fears. The waiter grew pale under his eye. When night came, he took a closed cab. He told the driver to go here and there through the city. I say he, not I. That child of hell felt nothing human. Only fear and hate lived in him. At last he thought the driver grew suspicious. He paid him and went on foot. In those wrong-sized clothes, he drew every eye. His 2 low passions, fear and hate, raged in him like a storm. He walked fast, hunted by his own thoughts, whispering to himself. He skulked down empty streets, counting the minutes to midnight. Once a woman spoke to him. Perhaps she offered matches. He struck her face, and she fled. I came back to myself at Lanyon's house. The horror in my old friend's eyes may have touched me a little. I do not know. Yet it was nothing beside the deep hate I now felt for the hours I had just lived. A change had come over me. I did not fear the rope most of all now. I feared being Hyde. Lanyon's harsh words reached me as in a dream. In a dream I came home and went to bed. After that long strain, I slept very deep. Even the nightmares that twisted me could not wake me. In the morning I rose shaken and weak, yet rested. I still hated and feared the beast that slept inside me. I did not forget the heavy dangers of the day before, but I was at home, near my drug. My thanks for escape shone so bright that it almost matched my new hope. After breakfast, I walked slowly across the court, happy in the chill air. Then the strange warning feeling seized me again. I ran to the safety of my cabinet just in time. Again I burned and froze with Hyde's wild passions. I needed a double dose to return to myself. 6 hours later, as I sat sadly by the fire, the pangs came back. I had to take the drug again. From that day on, I could look like Jekyll only by a great effort, like hard exercise, and only while the drug was fresh in me. Any hour of day or night, a warning shudder would take me. Above all, if I slept or even dozed in a chair, I always woke as Hyde. Under the weight of this constant threat, and by the long nights without sleep, I became a man eaten up by fever. My body and mind grew weak. I could think of only one thing, the horror of my other self. But when I slept or when the strength of the drug faded, I jumped almost at once, without much pain now, into a mind full of terror, a heart boiling with empty hatreds, and a body too small to hold such raging life. Hyde seemed to grow strong while Jekyll grew sick. The hate between us was now equal on both sides. Jekyll hated Hyde by a deep life instinct. I had seen clearly the full ugliness of the thing that shared some part of my mind and would share my death. Beyond those links which hurt me most, I thought of Hyde as not only devilish, but almost not living at all. That was the horror. That slime seemed to cry out with voices. That shapeless dust seemed to move and sin. That what was dead and without form took the work of life. Hyde's hate for Jekyll was of another kind. He feared the scaffold, and so he often chose a little suicide and let Jekyll come back. He hated to do it. He hated the sad mood into which I had fallen. He raged at my dislike for him, so he played ape-like tricks on me. He wrote bad words in my books in my own hand. He burned letters. He tore up my father's portrait. If not for his love of life, he would have ruined himself long ago just to ruin me with him. His love of life is a wonder. I go further. Though I shake with cold at his very thought when I remember his low state and wild passion, and when I know he fears my power to end him by my death, I find a little pity for him in my heart. It is useless, and time runs out to say more. No one ever suffered like this. Let that be enough. Even so, habit brought, not comfort, but a hard skin of the soul, a dull, dark surrender. My punishment might have lasted for years, but for the last blow that fell. It cut me off from my own face and my own nature. My store of the salt, never renewed since the first day, began to run low. I sent for more and mixed the draught. It boiled. It made the first change of color, but not the second. I drank. It did nothing. You will hear from Poole how I had London searched. It was no use. I now believed the first salt was impure, and that some unknown impurity gave the draught its power. About a week has passed. I finished this under the power of the last of the old powders. This is the last time, unless a miracle comes, that Henry Jekyll can think his own thoughts or see his own face, so sadly changed, in the glass. I must not delay. If the pain of change takes me while I write, Hyde will tear these pages. But if some time passes after I hide them, his selfish mind, fixed only on the present, will likely spare them again from his ape-like spite. The doom that closes on us both has already pressed and bent him. In half an hour I shall again and forever put on that hated self. I know what I shall do then. I shall sit shaking and weeping in this chair, or I shall pace up and down in a tight, fearful joy of listening, and start at every sound that hints of danger. Will Hyde die on the scaffold? Or will he find the courage to end himself at the last? God knows. I do not care. This is my true hour of death. What follows belongs to another. Now I lay down the pen. I seal my confession. With this, the life of the unhappy Henry Jekyll comes to an end.